mean, otherwise, why would you even start an enterprise of any type? Whether it's a commercial or non-commercial, why would you start? Because you looked at something and said, "Wow, there's a need out there which no one else is satisfying, and I've got an idea about how to meet that need." And so it sparks the initial inspiration is one of curiosity, a sense of optimism that the problem it's a resolvable problem, a certain amount of self-confidence that you have the wherewithal to solve that. And what I would suggest is for someone who's starting up, don't lose sight, don't lose sense, don't lose grasp of that initial activation energy.
Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thankz, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thankz.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line of Founder's Life, and you'll get $1,000 off your first month. Now, I'm excited to be joined today by Steve Spear. Steve, thanks for joining. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, Leo, thanks so much. I'll try to keep the introduction kind of short. In terms of institutional affiliation, I'm a senior lecturer at MIT, a founder of a software company, a business process software company called C2Solve. And my work has really been motivated over many, many years, first by the question of, why is life unfair? I mean that competitively in terms of you have folks in different sectors, different industries, playing on level playing field with all their counterparts and getting similar results. Again, level playing field. Yet there are those small number of outliers who their ability to generate value and get rewarded extravagantly for it is just off the charts. And so I've invested a lot of time trying to understand what those outliers do that's so different from everybody else and help others replicate that outlier behavior.
Excellent. So talk a little more about your career and what led you to where you are today, and then what you're actively helping people do right now. So what's a typical customer look like and how you're actively helping?
Yeah. So the motivation on this goes back to the late 1980s, and the why is life unfair question came out of one storied American enterprises like General Motors, U.S. Steel, RCA, et cetera, where seemingly all of a sudden they were getting this existential threat, sometimes a death blow, from Japanese industrials, Mitsubishi, Toyota, Honda, Sony, et cetera. And their first reaction was it must be unfair because how could we be the leaders and then all of a sudden be the trailing followers? I was one of a very large group at that time who were motivated to go figure out what was going on in Japan, bring lessons back and put it in a sort of crass fashion, beat Japan. And what we discovered, I think when we first went there, we went with the preconceived notion that there must be some sort of cultural difference, or there must be some governmental regulatory difference in the Japanese system versus the American system. And, or maybe there was a technological difference. They just had better algorithms for production control. Fundamentally, what we found is that the leaders, and it wasn't all of Japanese industry, it was just the leaders. They had figured out that if they were going to come from behind, catch up and win, they had to be figuring out better what to do and how to get it done. And back in the 60s and 70s, when this was motivated in Japan, figure out how to do it with less capability and fewer resources. And so way back then, they realized the source of a sustainable competitive advantage was creating an internal dynamic of exceptionally fast learning, exceptionally fast seeing problems, solving problems, and bringing those solutions into practice so that they could have a better ability to express value. So anyway, that was the motivation and the discovery. And over the years, I guess I've split my time in two ways. One is look for other exemplar organizations, which I was just looking for exemplar organizations. What it turned out, it wasn't necessarily confirmation bias. It was just confirmation that they too were competing on their ability to see and solve really hard problems better, faster than anybody else. And then the flip side is trying to bring those lessons learned into sectors or to individual enterprises that would have benefited from such a lesson.
So quite a journey and certainly a pretty high level information that you're able to help with. And talk to me a little bit about what family looks like and means to you.
Yeah, so great question. And I'll just say this stuff professionally spills over into the family, right? Because professionally, what was the lesson out of these great companies? It was all about, one, helping develop people and their ability to be really creative problem solvers and doing it in such a way that is much more of a nurturing model. And I know this sounds funny, right? Because we typically don't think of industry and manufacturing as a place of nurturing leadership and helping people find full expression for their truest self. In fact, that's what we were finding. Anyway, so you start thinking about how that carries over to one's personal life is, the hours you spend on the job, you spend practicing this type of doing where you yourself have to exhibit a tremendous amount of curiosity. And then curiosity starts with a certain humility to say, look, here's a situation which I don't know that much about, which is why I have to immerse in it. So you start by that. And then another part of your doing is you try to bring other people along to help them give fullest expression to their own curiosity and creativity. Well, if you act that way on the job and that's what you do, it really influences how you think. And then once that's how you think, then it gets amplified in how you do. And of course, you try to bring that home too. And at first you try to bring it home consciously, but then you bring it home sort of unconsciously because it's becoming more and more habit. And I'd like to think that the way you engage with my family and the community of which we're a part is, look, I teach at MIT. And so the stereotype when people are teasing me, and I think in good humor is, Dr. Know-it-all or something like that. But I think, in terms of personal reputation and how I'm perceived by my wife, Miriam, and our kids, they perceive me more as, sort of a curious person and who encourages them to have liberty to explore their own curiosity as well.
Love that. And how does health look for you?
Well, say that again.
How does health look for you? What does health mean in terms of physical health, mental health, nutrition? What's important?
Yeah. So, great question. And, I think fundamentally, particularly as you get older, when you're younger, health is, how fast can I run a distance or swim something or how much can I lift? And when you get older, it's just, do I have, the energy and the attitude to, do the things I want to do and behave in the way I want to behave? And, I'm really fortunate. I've not had personally serious health issues, but there were, the injury here and then COVID was really disruptive. And there was a period of feeling not quite as capable. And again, we're not talking triathlon capable. We're talking about capable of just getting up and about and engaging and being, persistently present in the things that mattered. And it really impacts you. It does really get to the effect that you do have. Look, I know it sounds so new age or whatever the term is now. Oh, I've got to take me time and this and that. It's true. You do. You have to do self-maintenance. And then part of it's selfish because you just feel better. But part of it is you got to do it so that when you're engaging with others around you, you're engaging fully, positively, and without the distractions of not being the fullest self you can be.
And what about, that all makes sense. What about for fun? What do you like to do?
So, it's a good question. So there's stuff I like to do, just stuff around the house. I like to cook, and I'm not a particularly good cook. I mean, my food's not bad, but this is not like, no one's put me on TV. Say, oh, look at the amateur at home. I like to cook, and a couple of reasons for that. One is very physical cooking. And a lot of my work is sitting and thinking and writing and communicating like everyone else these days. You have that very non-physical part of your life. And cooking is nothing but chopping things up with knives and then exposing them to heat and flame. So there's a lot of vicarious physicality to it. The nice thing about cooking also is that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginning is, the conceptual stuff of, what are we going to serve and how's people going to react to it? And then sort of the nitty gritty planning of the operations of it, of where do I get the ingredients? How am I going to prepare the meal and put it out? And there's a satisfaction at the end that people actually had a meal. You can even close it out is that when you're all done and you cook as you go, that you started with a clean kitchen, you ended with a clean kitchen, but in between there was happiness to it. So I'd say that's, day to day, that's kind of a thing I like to do. And the other thing is, my wife and I, we like to go places, and when we get there, if there's sort of the landmark you got to see it, right? The museum or whatever else. But we just like to wander around, getting back to this curiosity thing and just say, never been here, never done that. Let's go take a look.
And what's been in your life a pivotal moment?
Oh, well, there's certainly been a bunch. In terms of, look, there's all the stuff that happens as you're growing and developing and maturing as a child. And that's like a whole long list. Credit to my family on that. Professionally, I'd say I had a couple of things. One, when I was when I started as a graduate student, I was coming out of a job where a career path there was, the 100-hour weeks. That was good work. I mean, I found the work interesting. Certainly the remuneration, fitted with a 100-hour work week, but it wasn't a lot of balance. And I got to graduate school I started meeting a bunch of faculty who they were leaders in their field. They certainly were. They couldn't have been teaching what they were teaching, where they were teaching, without being leaders in their field. The other thing is they were very good people because not only was their commitment into the laboratory to make discovery, it was to the graduate students they had in the laboratory into the classroom and developing them. I became very aware very early about the human connection that was so important in their professional identification. Let me just say, that wasn't unique. I had previous jobs where I had great people who took very personal interest in developing me as a young person then. There was another element, though, and this gets to the 100-hour week thing, is that I had one advisor, a guy named Dave, who was fantastic, accessible, nurturing, all of that, except on Thursday afternoons. And why was that? It's because Thursday afternoons is when he had to pick up Molly, his daughter, from soccer practice, or maybe ballet rehearsal, one of the others. And it really struck me how he had created this very rewarding and impactful role for himself professionally, and also had ability to have this very integrated role in his family and they in their life and they in his. And so I probably was in my mid to late 20s then and thinking about what I was going to do as my next step. And it didn't give me necessarily direction into what field that emerged later on, but it certainly established tone that whichever vector I was going to follow, it had to be a vector that qualified in terms of that sort of very rich integrated balance. Actually, I'm not even going to use the word balance. Sorry for the philosophical digression. Balance implies trade-off, that I have A or B. What he was having the integration, the synthesis, the synergy of A and B. And I thought that was a beautiful thing. Yeah, I mean, there were others, but I'll stop at that one for now. Yeah.
Lovely. And what is one snippet of advice that you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
Yeah. So for someone starting, look, if you start thinking about what motivated you in the first place, I'm willing to guess is that you looked at something and said, that is not nearly as good as it could be. I mean, otherwise, why would you even start an enterprise of any type? Whether it's a commercial or non-commercial, why would you start? Because you looked at something and said, wow, there's a need out there which no one else is satisfying. And I've got an idea about how to meet that need. And so it sparks, the initial inspiration is one of curiosity, a sense of optimism that the problem it's a resolvable problem, a certain amount of self-confidence that you have the wherewithal to solve that. And what I would suggest is for someone who's starting up, don't lose sight, don't lose sense, don't lose grasp of that initial activation energy. And Leo, here's why I bring that up, and here's the risk, right? Which is we have that initial moment of inspiring curiosity, energy, optimism, and it's infectious, right? And the reason we know it's infectious because we get other people to believe us, where they believe us because they join us as co-founders, they join us as employees, they join us as funders. Somehow they're willing to join us because of that initial curious optimism. What's the risk? And we see it all the time. As something starts getting more established, people lose that curiosity, lose that humility, lose that optimism, and either because they're under pressure or they've acquired a certainty that they have the way. And I think, you and I, and I'm sure, other folks who are participating in this, they've had the experience of being with someone who's like, what happened to the old guy? Where'd he go? I signed up for that old guy, and now why am I with this person who's so demanding, so uncompromising, so unforgiving? So anyway, that would be my advice. That initial moment, that initial spark, don't lose.
Love it. So thank you. And thank you for joining us today and sharing your pearls of wisdom.
Oh, Leo, well, pearls, I don't know. It's what I think is wise. We'll let the listeners find out. But I appreciate the invitation. Back to this issue of curiosity and humility and optimism. The world is wildly imperfect. And the people who are the force for moving closer, and like Toyota used to say, or Lexus, the relentless pursuit of perfection is the people who look at something and the moment they see it not quite right, they don't say, what can one do? They instead say, they look at it and say, I wonder, what can I do? And so anyway, being invited to converse with this community, and hopefully this is the start of a longer conversation, that's fantastic. A privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.